Hi everyone, this is Hanime on Anime, herself in person. Yay. I need to think of something better than that. Oh well. But anyways, welcome to part 3 of Hanime on Autism. And this week I'm going to be talking about something that I actually kind of closed last week's video on, relationships. Both friendly and not friendly, or I guess I should say friendly and very, very, very friendly. You get the idea. Okay, so I've said this several times already in this event. People with autism have a hard time communicating. Or, in essence, their social skills suck. I guess that's kind of harsh putting it, but, well, it's almost kind of true. But, I mean, they have a hard time starting conversations. Sometimes they can't look you in the eye if they manage to start one. They don't understand body language or sarcasm or jokes. A lot of times they'll take them literally. So, you say that, or you think about that, and it almost makes you wonder, well, is it possible for people with autism to have relationships? Duh! Of course. And really, all it takes is a little effort on both the autistic person's end and the non-autistic person's end. So I ended last week's video with this, but I think one of the best ways to actually start a friendship with someone who is autistic, find out what their obsession is. I kid you not, it really is, and this sounds incredibly cheesy, pardon me, but it really is the key to opening the box that is the autistic person. Again, that's a very cheesy way to put it, but it really is true. If you have a conversation with an autistic person long enough, granted, they're probably going to talk more about what they're obsessed with. You know, eventually, you're going to get a little more personal with them. And to be honest, you really don't have to push at all. I mean, let them ramble on about what they're obsessed with. You know, you will get there. Plus, letting them talk and you just listening is almost, at that point, you're almost considered a friend. And I guess for me, and I think I mentioned this last week, it's almost like you have to go through a rite of passage, sort of. I guess that's kind of an extreme way to put it, but it almost is kind of like that. You know, people with autism are not going to be as, I won't say trusting, but again, with autistic people having such poor social skills, they're not going to open up right away. So, again, best way to do that, find out what their obsession is. Now, for those who are autistic, keep this in mind. Not every person that you meet or talk to is going to have the same obsession as you are. And, you know, if that's the case, don't get your feelings hurt by any means. That shouldn't stop you from talking to anybody. But still, just keep that in mind that everybody has different views than you do. And you honestly cannot help that. And love to love. Yes, I opened that with a quote from The Princess Bride. I know, it's weird. I'm an anime blogger. I should be quoting from anime, but I can't think of anything, so that's what I went with. Okay, I got off topic there. Not really, but yes. Love is a pretty complicated topic, especially if you are autistic. And obviously it's because of poor social skills. And really, I do have a lot more to say, to those who are autistic on this topic. But I mean, first I will say it's possible to have a romantic relationship with someone and be autistic. Hello, I'm living proof here. But yes, it's possible for that to happen. And really, you will hear a lot of people say that communication is very important, and it really is. Now, don't panic. In my personal experience, the best thing or the best way you can communicate with your significant other, keep it simple. You don't have to talk about your entire life story the minute you start dating. I mean, no, you don't have to do that. I mean, talk about your day, like how was it? Did something exciting happen or something like that? Keep it simple. You don't have to be complicated. And also, there is a point where you have to bring up that you are autistic to your significant other. Now, whether or not you do that very, very early on in your relationship, or you do that way later down the road, but still, you do have to bring that up eventually. And usually, it really helps your relationship a lot more. It changes it, but it's very helpful. And I actually, it's funny, my fiance actually knew that I had Asperger's syndrome before we even started dating. And wouldn't you know, he still was willing to date me. And now he's willing to marry me. And I know that he will probably watch this at some point. So, but yes. And with that, if you bring up that you're autistic, the one thing you really have to keep in mind is that if your significant other really does care about you, they will understand and they will be willing to compromise and listen to you. And this also goes with setting boundaries as far as the physical part of the relationship goes. And you have to establish that very early on. You need to say what you're comfortable with, what you'd be willing to do, and what you absolutely cannot do. And again, if your significant other really does care about you that much to be with you, they'll understand and be willing to compromise. And if they can't do that, then you need to move on. And I mentioned this last year too, is if there's a point when you feel like your relationship no longer exists, or you feel like you and your other are done, don't jump to that right away. Give it some serious thought and think about it. And if you feel like your relationship is over, end it. End it and be done. And how you handle it afterwards. I mean, my personal experience, I've handled my breakups pretty well. I mean, I'm usually sad for 1 day to an hour or so, and then I'm like, okay, I'm moving on with my life now. But yes, I did want to bring that up. And for those who are not autistic, and yes, it may seem like there's a lot of understanding and compromise and listening that you have to do. And yes, you have to. So it does seem like there's a lot of work on your end. But I think the best advice that I can give is, be patient and understanding. People with autism are not, like I said in last week's video, they're not willing to change instantly. They're not willing to break routine so quickly. So if you get to a point in your relationship, that person who is your other who is autistic is going to want to stay in that for a little while. And, just take it take it as it comes, Also, and I didn't mention this either, and I should have before I got into the non-autistic person's portion of the relationship, but for those who are autistic, don't be afraid to compromise on your end of the bargain. And that's another thing with relationships too. Not only is communication a really big thing, but compromise is another really big thing too. And at times, you have to be willing to give up something that you want. You really cannot have everything that you want in a relationship. So this week, I really didn't have a whole lot to talk about in terms of topics. But I did have a lot to say about this week's topic. And really, that is, when it comes to relationships, both friendly and romantic, you really have to put in some effort on both ends. Believe me, people with autism can be some of the most loyal and faithful companions you will ever find. Who knows? You might marry one. I guess I'm speaking from personal experience. But anyways, that ends part 3 of Hanime on Autism. Be sure to stay tuned for part 4, which is the last part of the Hanime on Autism event. And also stay tuned this Sunday when I do Character of the Month. Thanks for watching. Bye.